Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. I am your host, Carolyn Hines, film culture critic and journalist. And this is the podcast / YouTube channel where I speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today I'm very happy to be joined by my two guests here who are in Canada. You know, I don't get to speak to people who are in Canada very often. First, we have Jack Blum, who is the executive director of Real Canada, and artistic director Sharon Corder. And they're both the founders of Real Canada. So Real Canada is a nonprofit organization that started in 2005, whose mandate was basically to show Canadian films to Canadian students and audiences all across Canada. So the website says coast to coast to coast, because Canada is not just Toronto and Ontario. Canada is Saskatchewan. Canada is Nunavut. You know, Canada is Sault Ste. Marie. All of these areas of Canada. And I think this is such an amazing thing because I will be honest with you, I was not aware of it till I got the press release for this. So I honestly was not aware, and I've been a film critic since 2017. And so I just, first of all, thank you, Jack and Sharon, for joining me to talk about this. Yay.
We're delighted to be here.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So first thing I want to talk about is just the two of you coming together and creating Real Canada, because I think it's such a special organization where you were like, we love films, we love talking to films, and we want to talk about film to students in schools, you know, because me being a film critic and a journalist, a lot of my work centers around festivals, like covering festivals and speaking to professionals. But something that I do is like I talk to like my niece and my nephew and their friends sometimes about film, and I love to have that engagement with them. And I've worked at a school. I used to work at a public school here in Toronto. So kids love talking about movies. You know, yes, kids love talking about animated cartoons. So talk to me about just like, let's create an actual official program to introduce and talk about Canadian films to Canadian students.
You take that one.
Okay, well that's where we started. So we're certainly expanded since then. But we started, actually, it was at a political meeting. There was a candidate that he was actually the new mayor. And we invited a whole bunch of major luminaries from the Toronto film industry, of which we were, at that time, we were screenwriters and producers, and brought them in to just talk about the problems that the film industry was having. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of problems. And so at one point I said, some days I just wish that we could take our best made films and show them to like young people, because they don't have any access to them. And wouldn't that be great? And everybody went, oh, and it was like, it was so cute because they were all these hard-bitten business people. And on the way home, Jack and I looked at each other and said, shouldn't think about trying to do that, should we?
And the idea at that point of getting Canadian film into the education system just seemed vast and utterly impossible and quixotic. But we're kooky. And that first year, so we started talking to people about it.
So we brought in other people in the industry to talk with us about it. We brought in educators to explain to us the school system.
We went around to schools and talked to kids and talked to teachers. And then in 2005, the initial idea was a film festival that would come to your school. So we would in Toronto, we did 6 schools.
Which is a big deal.
Took them over. Every school saw 6 different films. The kids had tickets to whichever films they wanted. They programmed the films. It was incredibly elaborate.
And we brought in giant screens and sound systems and of course...
And actors and directors.
We had Adam McGoyan and Sarah Polley and all kinds of people came in the first year. And it was very exciting and very fun. And
then we realized, I guess we have to keep doing this.
Yes.
So that spread pretty quickly across the country. And now we're in every province and territory, and we screen about 2,000 films.
3,000 last year, I think.
Okay, if you say so. That many, whatever that number is.
Yes.
He's like, are we sure?
I think we're on track this year for 2,000 screenings across the country, French and English, K to 12. And teachers go to our website, they get a film, they get a lesson plan. So that actually we managed to do.
And so that was a revelation to all the filmmakers who came in, because we worked with many of the filmmakers, and they've gone into schools. And it was a revelation to Canadian filmmakers to discover that 15-year-old and 16-year-old and 17-year-old kids could love their movies, because we all had this belief that that wasn't true somehow, that Canadian movies weren't accessible. Turns out they are. And so from there, then from that idea grew an idea that we wanted to show them to more people. So we started showing them to adult new Canadians as a way to say, here's the country you've just come to. Welcome.
As part of their English classes.
Yeah, but in the thousands, we would take over TIFF, and we would have busloads of them come, and they would talk with all the directors and actors. And then from that,
yeah, in 2014, we started National Canadian Film Day because we really are certifiable. And that year, 2014, it was 70 screenings across the country, and we thought we were the bomb.
Oh, we thought we were the big time.
We thought we were big time. And this year, we're going to exceed 1,800 screenings across the country and in 43 countries around the world.
90 screenings around the world of Canadian films.
It's funny that filmmakers think that their films wouldn't be liked or accessible to children. And the reason I say this is I am from as I mentioned before we began recording, I'm Barbadian. So I grew up in Barbados. I moved to Canada, to Toronto in 2009. So I moved here as an adult. I moved here as around 26. But something that we used to do in secondary school and in primary school back there is at the end of every school term, we'd have a movie day. So like usually within the last week of school, we don't have any exams. It's like free.
And what would they show you?
In primary school, it was mostly like cartoons, like the Lion King, that kind of stuff. And then like Sesame Street. We could watch it at home. Like the teachers would put on like a tape, and it could be anything like Sesame Street or any kind of like children's movie. But in secondary school, the teachers left it up to us, the students, to select what films we wanted to watch. So there'd be like this. On each, we have where our schools are built are in like blocks. So like each block is like a year. So like on one block is like first years to second years, and then another block would be like third years to fourth years, and then the next plus fourth to upper fifth. And usually, depending on the block, like we would kind of like curate the films to suit that age group. But for the fourth upper fifth, which is like 14 to 16, 17, depending. Our last year, I'll never forget it. Our last day of school, we watched Terminator, and we watched Werewolf. So the one Werewolf in Paris and Werewolf in London. Those films. So
yeah, absolutely.
That was the first time I watched those two particular films. In America, it's American Werewolf in London and American Werewolf in Paris. Those were when I watched those films. And our teachers had no idea why we were screaming, and we were like freaking out. We had the popcorn and everything. So I love the idea of taking films to school, because I literally grew up with that concept at school in Barbados. So I love that you started it with school. But talk to me about the using it as a way to talk to immigrants about Canada, because something that a lot of us outside of Canada when we're growing up don't realize is how many films outside of Hollywood are made in Canada.
Yeah.
And like so many films are, and we don't know it, especially if they're filmed in like winter landscapes, like a lot of Lifetime films are actually filmed, I believe, in like Vancouver and the northern provinces. And I always tell people I can't, like, those films lie to me about Canada when it comes to winter, because when I moved here 2009, it did not snow until like January, February. So I had no White Christmas. So I thought I was like the
unusual year.
And it was only as I lived here more longer that I realized how many films are made here. So I think it's actually a really good way to introduce immigrants not only to Canada but to the Canadian film industry, to show how robust it actually is. Because one thinks North America, they think Hollywood. We don't really think Canada.
Oh, absolutely. So there are two parts to the Canadian industry, and they serve each other. One is the films that are made from Hollywood that are shot here, and then there's our films that are about us, and we focus on the films that are about us. So it's very interesting to see how immigrant audiences, like new immigrant audiences, not
some of them come a month ago or 3 months ago or 6 months ago,
brand new, and how moved they can be. There's a film called The Whale, and it's about a whale that
a documentary.
That's stranded, and it involves the indigenous community around there and lots of things like that. And we showed it to an audience of 500 immigrants, And they identified with the whale. That there's a fish out of water, that this whale was stranded in a new place and trying to make friends and all of that. And they were very moved by it. We've shown them Indigenous made films with Indigenous filmmakers. And that's very moving because you've got the oldest Canadians and the newest Canadians in dialogue with each other. And it's like those screenings.
Or sometimes we've shown them a film and the star, I remember one in particular where the late Gordon Pinsent was there. We showed them Away from Her. And they come from countries where cinema is huge, just huge. And the idea that the star of the movie walks out and talks to them just is so meaningful for them. And they feel welcomed. They feel part of the country.
And we want them to be. Jack often... or whoever was facilitating would walk out and talk to them about, you're here to help us build this country. Welcome.
And watching stories about us and talking about these stories,
us, which includes you,
helps us build the country.
And also some people are from cultures where everybody looks like them. Mm. And so just the act of bringing, they're all in their ESL classes, but if you bring them into a large room at TIFF,
they're from 100 countries in the world.
And we have people call out, what country are you from? And so they feel this sense of who we are in Canada, which is all of us. And that sense that there are people from Bangladesh, and there are people from Barbados, and there are people from China, and there are people from Poland, and there are people from Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's really remarkable,
and it's very moving. So that's a program we really, really love. It's very dear to our hearts.
No, and I love that you have that, because film, to me, I always say this, but one of the reasons that I love film, and one of the reasons that made me decide to become a film critic, but then also focus on film and culture, is because no matter where we are from, but in speaking about immigrants and in that particular program, there is something that we all experience, which is the disconnect between home old, where we're born, where we're raised, and home new, which is Canada, Toronto, whatever province. And that's a transition process, and for a lot of people, like, even if you talk to other people who do get it, sometimes they don't really get it. And I think films is a really good way of actually helping people to explain exactly what they mean and what that experience is like.
We had an event last year at Rideau Hall, and it was 4 new Canadians, one screening in French.
It was a National Canadian Film Day preview,
sort of. One because the Governor General is our patron. And we had one in English and one in French, and they were both immigrant stories. So we showed by Chocolate in one room.
And this was 2 new Canadians.
2 new Canadians, and Rue, based on the novel.
I was just going to mention that was one of the films that I love.
And so they're newly arrived in Canada. They're invited to Rideau Hall. They're watching this story that really is about their experiences coming here. And it was just such a powerful evening. It was magical. And it was a real validation that when you see your experiences on screen, it matters. You exist in a different way, and it's identity building and it's culture building.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned, because I was actually going to mention that next, because in talking about the National Canadian Film Day, when you talk about National Canadian Film Day, I think right now in the political climate that we're living in is even more important, because there's so much conservative right-wing politics that are going back, leaning on white supremacy, where they're saying like Canada is ours, and it's just like, Canada, first of all, belongs to First Nations. All of us are just guests here, right? And I've been living here since 2009, right? And I call myself an immigrant, and one of the reasons I call myself an immigrant, I identify as immigrant, is for 2 reasons. One, to acknowledge Barbados, my home birth. That's where we would say my navel string is buried, that's home. That's where my family is from, and to honor my ancestry and everything that my ancestors went through in Barbados, but also because moving here, I recognize Canada belongs to the First Nations, and Canada. I remember I saw a seminar recently where this director he was talking about Canada, where he says Canada is not a country of immigrants. He said Canada is a country with immigrants, and there's a very big distinction in that, where he's saying like it's not all, because it's like immigrants are still disenfranchised and still being discriminated against within Canada, as well as the First Nation Indigenous people. So he said, if you say Canada is a country with immigrants, you're honoring both how both communities are fighting to get the same fight to be accepted, right? And so when you have a film, program like National Canadian Film Day, to me, especially when looking at the films that you are curated for the 2025 highlights, films like the Jackie Shane story talks about people who are Canadian but still don't feel part of Canadian society, and I love that documentary. And
Beautiful.
Talking about Rue, I actually interviewed the film teams for both those films. I interviewed the team for Rue at TIFF, and for Jackie Shane, I interviewed the filmmakers, I believe it was for Sundance, and so when you have all of these different stories, and then there's another one, Universal Language, which I'm hoping
Yes.
to watch and speak to the filmmakers talking about language and about the absurdity. I haven't seen it, but I know it's a comedy. It's talking about the absurdity of being an immigrant and speaking different languages to people who have the same background and community as you. I think having a program like what you're doing for this year and the type of films you're highlighting is really important. And I wish more people would understand that film isn't just for entertainment. Film is a way to communicate. Film is a way
Film is how I've learned. If you spend an evening with me, there's no way, and I'm not being a cinephile, I'm just trying to tell you who I am, that I won't come up with a story about something I saw in a movie.
I'm the same way. I used to spend my
How we learn about the world. But also I would just put it slightly differently. It is entertainment, but the richest entertainment is the entertainment that connects you with other cultures and other people and or yourself, your neighbors, your family. Like that's really entertaining, right?
I'm an immigrant myself. I'm from the States. And when I first got here, I thought, okay, it's the same. Oh my God, it is not the same. And it took me a long time. And I still can feel, even though it's my first language, even though I present as fairly Canadian, that there's a part of me that is not. But I feel like there's so many of us that are. That makes me extra Canadian.
And that's the thing, right? Like that's what I say, like people who are not immigrants, no matter what country you've moved to, there is that one part of you that just feels not quite fully settled, no matter how many years you've lived in this new
No matter how many. Well, I think of it as sort of like that the States is like one of my parents, and this is my other parent, and that I am a product now of both of those parents.
Right. So I want to talk about, we don't have much time, so I want to talk now about the film, the National Canada Film Day, which is April the 16th, and opening it up to people to host screening events independently. Like I had mentioned to you before we began recording, like it's a dream that I've had for the last couple of years, where I want to host film series because I just love talking about film, but I love talking to people about film, where I don't want to just screen the film. I want to be able to have like the Canadian filmmakers attend and discuss the film with them and have them discuss the film with the audience, like that's it as an interactive thing. So talk to me about people hosting these events for themselves and giving them a way to feel like part of the film screening process, because screening films is a part of the filmmaking process, because that's how filmmakers learn how to work better on their next project from the reactions of the audience.
This is the point of it.
Yeah, this is the whole point of National Canadian Film Day, the heart of it. There's a lot on streaming services, there's a lot on broadcast, but the heart of it are all of these screenings, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people just hosting their own screenings, sometimes in libraries, sometimes in Legion halls, in churches and community centers and basements, wherever they want, or at home.
And they're also big ones. There
are film festivals and cinemas and all kinds of
every major city and many small towns. There are screenings like at TIFF is doing them, and VIFF in Vancouver.
And there are premieres and there are sneak previews, and there's lots of
stuff
guests.
If you just want to go out, there are places to go.
But if you want to be part of it from a hosting point of view, you can have your friends over. You can just go to canfilmday.ca and register a screening. We make it very easy. We get a film to you. We take care of the screening rights. We have a party kit that you can print out and have fun with.
The party kit is fabulous.
And like 100,000 Canadians are going to be attending these screenings. So in these particular times, these elbows up times when Canadians are looking for ways to feel united and looking for ways to feel part of the country and part of the culture, this is an opportunity we want to make as available as possible to all the Canadians that want to actually stand up for Canada.
And every screening comes with a pre-show. a 4-minute pre-show.
There are many that have video introductions from the directors, special to each film. There's all kinds of choices, and our staff helps you. It's getting a little tight now, but get on and register canfilmday.ca and help us break our record. We're on track to break our number of screenings record in our 12th year.
And I'm sure you will. And I'm going to try to do my part. We'll discuss that a bit after the interview, because it's just like, so it was legit. When I saw the email, I was like, this is exactly what I've been trying to do. And I haven't figured out, and I've been struggling to figure out how to actually do it. Like, I have that concept in my head, but like you're providing the tools on how to do it, like the template, which I think is amazing, because I went to the website and I looked at the toolkit, and it's a great toolkit because you do give, like, you offer things like an official logo, official hashtags to use, which for me as a live tweeter is very big. I love using hashtags because it provides a way for people to find information very easily and to stay and to keep like the conversation going, but and in a kind of like in a what's the word I'm looking, like in a library. In a digital library format, you use the hashtag and you can go find the discussion.
Well, it curates it. It's an automatic curation of remarks digitally online. Right. Everything up to do with that subject, you get access to.
And we also give people introductions if they want to use them, so they can introduce it to their gathering.
And there's fun stuff to print out, games and popcorn containers and all kinds of just goofy fun.
There's popcorn containers too. Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
you have to look under fun stuff. You go to the
look
website.
Under fun stuff. It's fun.
There's all kinds of
it's
stuff.
Fun. You can have face masks made so you can be whatever Canadian celebrity you want to be. Like
we have people. They do such creative things. There's a Boy Scout troop in Welland. Honest to God, they build cardboard cars, and the little kids sit in the room in their cars, and they have an indoor drive-in.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is so cute.
People do stuff all over the country. They do chili offs. They do, like, people are so imaginative in this country.
And so what I love about that, as will appeal to you, it's film that becomes a way to build community. People come together around the film and have a special event.
Oh, there is one event that's not a screening that I really would like to mention, especially to you, because of what your interests are. In Toronto, we're having an event called Elbows Up for Canadian Culture. And it's got Ali Hassan is hosting it, and Ali has done lots of amazing things. Yannick Bisson from Murdoch Mysteries, Don McKellar, whom I'm sure you know, Elmaya Telfeathers, who's really an amazing actress and director, and Mary Walsh. And they are going to discuss some of their favorite films and why our Canadian culture and our stories matter. And so that's going to be...
And it'll be engaging, participatory, town hall style event.
At the Scotiabank in downtown Toronto. So that's it's a different kind of event than the rest of the screenings. So.
Okay, that's cool. And that's going to tie into my last question for you.
Yeah.
What are your 2 favorite Canadian films from within the last year? That's from like this time period to this time.
I loved if it's just the last year we're talking about, I loved Universal Language. I thought that was wonderful. Your turn.
No, I'll always ask this question. I'm the artistic director, and I work with all of the filmmakers. So I never say favorites. I have a number of them, and in private, I would tell you what. There are really numbers of films that I truly love. One thing I can say is that in terms of some of the best work I think that's being done in the country is some of the Indigenous filmmaking that's been going on the last number of years. There's some really great stuff there, and I won't name names because I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's some great stuff there. And there's great stuff elsewhere too, but I feel very free to say that.
I'll just use my license and say another Canadian film, and it's not from the last year. It's what we were talking about it, and it's perfect for this year. And the film is Starbuck, out of Quebec, made by
it's
Patrick
great.
Huard.
You must see
a fantastic comedy.
If you like a laugh.
about a man who was a little enthusiastic as a sperm donor 30 years earlier, and hundreds of offspring. And it's a fantastic comedy. But the reason it's one of my favorites this year is because Hollywood tried to do a remake of it, and it was terrible.
Terrible.
And it's a fantastic example of Canadian film, absolutely splendid. American.
It lost the heart of the film, it was a heartful film. It stars Patrick Huard and
Antoine Bertrand.
Bertrand.
It's fantastic.
And it was a huge hit in Quebec. And we watched it with a woman who's a ballerina and a donor who was a banker, and we watched it at TIFF, and the four of us, completely different people, doubled over in genuine warm laughter. It was
Lovely, lovely film.
Yeah, Canadian humor is very different to American humor.
And Quebecois humor is very different again. And I don't always feel that I'm getting it, but Starbuck is universal.
Yeah, and talking about Indigenous films, I think one of the best ones I've seen in the last few years is Beans. Beans is
I love
Beans is gorgeous. We've shown it a lot and worked with those filmmakers. Terrific.
We love Tracy Deer. She's done a lot for us.
Yeah, she's a terrific person.
Yeah.
And it's a great film.
Great. We have to wrap up here now because I know you probably have more interviews to do, but thank you so much, Sharon and Jack, for speaking with me. This was truly enlightening and very fun, and it was great.
Really lovely to meet you.
Like that. You too. We will have to, I'm going to request to organize a separate Zoom chat for us to talk about what I was discussing before. But thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and I'm sure the event is going to be a much success, and I'm going to do my best to promote it on my social media. I'm always on Twitter. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.